So we do keep that there, you heard me?
Know what I'm saying? The 4-4. We got choppers inside the ship, but we can't bring them out because all the kids in this early law, you know what I'm saying? But this side go down right here, we represent for my nigga Joe.
CP3, bout it, you know, this is real, man.
That mean protection, that mean retaliation, that mean you gotta live by the gun, you did, you gotta die by the gun, you heard me?
Like I'm real with it, you know what I'm saying? I ain't got all that jewelry, but I got buku ammo, you heard me? Buku ammo.
Corey Miller, cmurder, was born on March 9, 1971 in New Orleans, Louisiana. He grew up in the Calliope Projects. He initially gained fame in mid-1990s as a part of his brother's masterpiece label, No Limit Records. Miller was one of the members of True, aka the Real Untouchables group, which originally consisted of him and 2 other rappers. Both of them were his brothers, Master P and Silk the Shocker. Miller released several solo albums of his own through the label. In 1998, he released his album, Life or Death. It went multi-platinum, and looking back right now, the title of the album is quite ironic. The album peaked at number 3 on the US Billboard 200s. In 1999, he released his album, Bossolini. The album also did really great, selling over 175,000 records its first week. It eventually was certified gold. It had a lot of great guest appearances like Snoop Dogg, Nate Dogg, Corrupt, and Daz Dillinger. Year after that, he released his third album, Trapped in Crime, in 2000. I'll talk about this album later on, but this album is pretty wild to me, everything from its name to its album cover. The album also had a lot of great special guests, like Fat Joe, Snoop Dogg, his brother Silk, and lots more. The album went number 9 on Billboard 200. It became his 3rd straight album to land in the top 10 on the Billboard 200 chart. Probably one of his most known songs to this day was from this album. Its hook went on to be used years later by the one and only Kanye West.
Them other niggas cause I'm down with my niggas.
In 2001, he released his last album with No Limit Records, and also while being a free man. The album was called CP3.com.
This the Calliope Project right here, you heard me? This CP3, all that shit y'all be hearing about on them songs.
After the release of his 3rd and 4th project, cmurder was at the top of the game. Money, cars, houses, you name it. He was living the dream, but all of his dream life that he built for himself will soon come crashing down. See, when you rise to the top and have a possibility to finally leave the situation you come from, you leave. All of the life that you lived before, especially coming from the streets, has to be left behind. Even though he had the right guidance by his brothers, who went on to have successful careers, C couldn't separate himself from the hood. As mentioned before, C grew up in the Calliope Projects. The project was built between 1939 and 1941. The early days of Calliope consisted of people who were from working class families, who lived comfortably and were saving up funds to purchase their own homes. Unfortunately, since the early 1980s, rival drug dealing street gangs have operated in and around the Calliope area. The violence escalated in the late 80s and peaked in early 1990s. From 1994 to 2004, 88 people were killed in the Calliope Projects. Throughout the early and mid-90s, it got so bad to the point where Calliope Projects got a nickname, Murder Capital of the United States. It had the highest per capita homicide rate.
And I'm saying murder has to sing. I'm gonna be a young killer with a lot of sense. When I do my average, you better behave before I shoot you in your head. Cut your shit up, put it clean in a microwave.
But even at this point, Corey would still consider this his home, no matter how bad it got.
One of the benefits of living in a project is then hurricane time, you ain't got a trip because them bricks ain't going nowhere, you heard? You ain't got a trip.
He didn't want to leave his past friends behind. He said he would have felt like a traitor, turning his back on his day ones. He was a real dude, but all of this realness will be the main thing that lead to his downfall in the end.
If you down, you down. You my nigga, you my nigga. If you ain't, you ain't. That's just how the fuck it is. See what I'm saying? Ain't no bullshit in a nut. So y'all gonna just see. Look in the nigga eye and see what a nigga about, you heard?
In an interview, his brother Master P mentioned that at the peak of his career, even while having mansions at suburbs, cars worth millions of dollars, C would still go back to the hood just to chill and do whatever. He even bought himself and his friends an apartment there just to chill.
Being in the hood more than I be anyway, you know, still trying to do what I gotta do. So why not have my own spot there still, you heard? It's 2-bedroom, 2 stories, 3rd floor Calliope style.
He loved the hood, and the hood loved him. He was acting and doing all the things he did before becoming platinum album selling millionaire hip-hop superstar. Being in this environment ultimately led him to get into more and more trouble.
I'm just like them, see what I'm saying? Ain't no motherfucker coming back, nigga ain't never left. Shit be with you. Take a nigga out the hood, you can't take the hood out the nigga. See what I'm saying?
She murdered a real person because he hang with my people in the cut.
Let's see. One love, you know what I'm saying? True soldier to the gang.
Cause you know, cmurder, you know, he do everything. It be like love. You know, he don't forget about us. Party with us, do everything with us. He don't forget. Smoke with us, chill, drink. We do, you know, we do everything. It's like he one of us. He a part of us. You hear me? He true for real. T.R. you to the gang. You hear me?
Corey Miller, known to many of you as cmurder, has spent more than a decade in prison.
In late 2001, cmurder was starting to get into some serious trouble, facing aggravated burglary and aggravated assault with a firearm charges. And even though these type of charges are not the ones to mess with, C couldn't even imagine what was coming for him very soon. His real, or quote-unquote really serious problems with the law started on August 15, 2001. C and his crew went to a club called Club Rags in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Shortly after arriving there, a security guard asked to search him. C refused to be searched. Following his refusal, owner came to the front of the club and told cmurder that he can't let him inside with a gun. Miller then, allegedly, tried to shoot the owner of the club as well as a bouncer. The incident was even caught on tape. After firing one shot, luckily his gun jammed and nobody got seriously injured or dead. He later turned himself in and was released on bond. You could say that he got lucky that time, but this luck will very soon run out. On January 12, 2002, not even 5 months later after his initial arrest, C and his crew went to Platinum nightclub in Harvey, Louisiana. On that particular night, there was a rap battle going on. 16-year-old Steve Thomas was one of the participants in the rap battle contest. As one of the bouncers recalled, Steve was a cool guy. He wanted to be a rapper. It was packed. The music was loud, which is typical for a nightclub. cmurder and his friends were hanging out in a booth, talking, drinking, and just having a good time. Thomas finished his set, and as soon as he stepped off the stage, a group of men attacked him. A fight breaks out. Security guard gets there and starts to break the fight up. We don't really know how and why Miller and his crew got into that fight, but C was there. Security guy grabs Corey from the back and asks him to chill, stop fighting. He answers, "Alright, cool big dog, cool." Just after finishing his last words, he gets back to fighting. As soon as Corey returned, single shot was fired. Crowd and all of the people in the club start to run towards the exit, including C and his crew. Once everybody had cleared, Steve Thomas, 16-year-old kid who was trying to pursue his dream of becoming a rapper, was just lying there in a pool of blood. He died from a single gunshot wound to the heart. It was a tragedy that should have been avoided. One of the security guards, Darnell Jordan, was taken to the detectives bureau. According to him, they showed him 6 pictures, asking him, "Who do you know in these pictures?" Security guard recognized one of them. It was none other than Corey Miller, aka cmurder. After recognizing one of the 6 people, according to the security guard, he was asked to sign a paper. He thought nothing of it, signed, and that was it. He was released. But what Darnell didn't know is that police tricked him into signing a paper, which confirms that he saw cmurder pressing the trigger and killing the innocent child, eventually becoming one of the key witnesses in the case. If the previous time he managed to get out on bond without anybody getting killed, this time it wasn't looking good for C. And if you think that after all of this ego and anger getting the best of you in not only one situation, but now 2, which even claimed an innocent child's life, you would get some sense in your mind and at least lay low. You couldn't be more wrong. 6 days after the shooting happened, on January 19, cmurder was arrested. And maybe somebody would like to take a guess where? It was at the House of Blues in New Orleans. Not the club this time, but close enough. Once again, he was causing disturbance there.
They got me at first with a guilty verdict, but you know they did it wrong.
On January 2002, Miller was charged with second-degree murder. He pled not guilty. His murder trial began in September of 2003 in Louisiana. The security guy we just talked about, Darnell Jordan, testified for the prosecution. Under oath, he claimed that Miller shot Thomas. Back in 2018, he did state that he was pressured by detectives to testify. He was scared, detained, and locked in a hotel room by the police for refusing to testify against Miller. He recanted his testimony, but none of this mattered back in 2003. After 15 days of testimony, the jury came back with a guilty verdict. The sentencing for Miller's family was devastating. Being found guilty of murder charge in Louisiana means mandatory life sentence without parole. After the first trial, Corey Miller and his team started to work towards reclaiming his freedom. He hired Jennifer Witry, private investigator. According to her, she investigated all facts, talked to all the lawyers, hundreds of witnesses, and found that there is nothing that suggests that C killed the kid. There were no evidence apart from one witness who was tricked into signing the papers.
Y'all know him in JP PCC. They got me at first with a guilty verdict, but you know they did it wrong. My spirit's up, my people behind me, you heard me. Pray for me and everything will be cool.
While investigating the case, they discovered that prosecutors improperly withheld criminal background information on 3 of their witnesses. New trial was granted by the judge in 2006, following these new foundings. After serving 3 years, Corey not only got one more shot to prove his innocence, but also granted him house arrest till the new trial. He was allowed by the judge to promote his new, yet-to-be titled CD and his novel, Death Around the Corner. All the visitors, including reporters, must get a permission to see Miller from the judge. He wasted no time outside, and while awaiting retrial, he released 3 albums: The Truest Shit I Ever Said in 2005, Screaming for Vengeance in 2008, and Calliope Click in 2009. Remember when at the beginning of the video I mentioned how his Trapped in Crime 2000 album was so insane to me? Well, maybe now you understand why. Imagine being a judge, police officer, jury, or anyone for that matter in that court, and hearing the guy who is charged with the murder and trying to prove his innocence is also the same guy whose rap name is cmurder, has countless of records and albums, all of them talking about the crime, killing people, quote unquote being trapped in crime, album covers featuring him sitting in a jail cell, a whole album dedicated to his neighborhood, murder capital of the United States, and much more. Also, remember that shooting in 2001 at Baton Rouge where Miller fired one shot at security guard and club owner, but saving himself from killing somebody when his gun jammed? Well, in 2009, on May 27, C pleaded no contest to 2 counts of attempted second-degree murder. He was found guilty and sentenced to 10 years in prison, with credit for time already served. Back to his shooting case, Corey Miller's retrial began in August 2009. At the retrial, once again, Darnell Jordan claimed under oath that cmurder killed Steve Thomas.
When prosecutors asked Jordan who killed Thomas, Jordan answered, cmurder.
In a BET interview, he mentioned never actually seeing a gun. Even when he moved Miller out of the fight, he raised his hands and he saw no gun. He claims that when they tricked him, police couldn't go back and just ran with the story. That's it. It was too high of a profile case for them to lose. Even though he was talking like this back in 2018, during the case he never mentioned anything like this, and even expressed fear of repercussions for his testimony. There is also information that prosecutors also charged cmurder's associates with witness tampering. I mentioned all of the stuff about him calling himself cmurder, songs, albums, covers, not without any reason. You see, all of these were used against him in court. Nowadays we see rappers' song lyrics being used against them in court, but this wasn't any different back in 2009. Lyrics like these were quoted in the courtroom.
I think that's ridiculous. I think that's like me, that's like Robert De Niro getting a ticket and me, reading a line from Goodfellas. It makes no sense.
But people, they ask questions like, well, do you feel like rappers have a responsibility, with their lyrics? No. Their only responsibility is to make it as hot as you think it could be.
On August 11, 2009, the jury found Corey Miller guilty of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to mandatory life imprisonment. What is interesting about this case is that he was found guilty of murder in 10-2 vote. It was not unanimous. Louisiana was the only state where you can convict someone to life in prison with non-unanimous jurists. Even though in 2018 it was decided to end non-unanimous juries in Louisiana, the change was not retroactive. In 2019, Corey Miller's legal team filed for a motion demanding a new trial, since key witnesses like Darnell Jordan and one other came out and said that they were being pressured into testifying against Miller by the authorities. Judge ruled a new trial cannot be granted. Miller to this day maintains his innocence, and he, his brothers, and his nephew have all called for a new trial numerous times, but he's still incarcerated to this day. From coming up in the projects, fighting every day to survive, to becoming one of the biggest rappers, selling multiple thousands of records, and doing it all with your family, to getting all of it taken away. Corey Miller, on January 12, 2002, lost everything. Not only cars, money, houses, jewelry, but his family, his future. Seeing his kids grow, teaching them how to ride a bike, and most importantly, his freedom. And it was all for what? Ego? Anger? Fun? Surrounding yourself with that type of environment will lead you only to 2 places, either dead or in prison. Miller had all the needs to move on from his past life, from monetary point of view to his support system. His brother Master P is a perfect example, and he tried to help him a lot of times. But as he perfectly said, I love my brother, but he's his own man. He is his own boss. You have to deal with the consequences that come with you. He made this decision multiple times before the tragic event, and now he had to pay the price. I know that there is a lot of controversy about the sentencing. Police doing shady things on their end, like pressuring people to sign in papers, cmurder's associates being charged with witness tampering, but regardless of all of that, what matters the most is that a 16-year-old kid lost a life that day. Parents lost a child. They won't be able to see him grow, graduate from college, or ever meet his girlfriend. During the Miller's sentencing, the victim's father said, "I'm not rejoicing, I feel bad for Miller's family, but at least they can see him. What have we got but a gravesite and a photograph?" These words coming from a parent is nothing more than heartbreaking. This story should serve as a lesson for every young man. Rest in peace, Steve Thomas.